The night of September 11, 2025, was supposed to be ordinary. But what happened behind closed doors that evening has continued to send shockwaves through fans, investigators, and the entire entertainment industry. Because what if everything we were first told wasn't the full story? Stay with me, because in today's explosive deep dive, we're uncovering the shocking new evidence in the passing of Yu Menglong and the 4 newly surfaced suspects that have turned this already mysterious case completely upside down. By the end of this video, you'll understand why fans are demanding answers louder than ever, and why this case may be far from closed. What you're about to hear will make you question everything. The timeline of September 11, 2025, has always felt too clean. According to the original reports, Yu Menglong was found unresponsive in his residence late that evening. Initial statements painted a quiet, almost clinical picture: no signs of struggle, no immediate red flags, just a tragic and sudden loss that left fans across the world in disbelief. But almost immediately, something didn't sit right. Fans who had followed Yu Menglong closely noticed subtle inconsistencies. His recent public appearances showed someone energetic, smiling, and actively planning future projects. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered that he had been preparing for a major comeback phase in his career. So how does someone go from making long-term plans to suddenly being gone? That question has haunted this case from day one. In the weeks that followed September 11, investigators maintained that there was no confirmed foul play. However, sources close to the situation began leaking quiet concerns: unusual phone activity, unexplained gaps in the timeline, and most chilling of all, missing digital data from the hours leading up to the incident. At first, these details were dismissed as internet speculation. Until now. Because newly surfaced information, reportedly pulled from previously overlooked evidence, has introduced 4 persons of interest who were never publicly discussed in the early days of the investigation. And their connection to Yu Menglong's final hours is raising serious eyebrows. Let's start with the first breakthrough that changed everything. A private tech analyst, hired independently by a group of determined fans, reportedly discovered irregularities in Yu Menglong's device activity on the evening of September 11. According to the findings circulating online, several outgoing communications were deleted within a very tight window of time. Not hours. Minutes. What makes this particularly unsettling is that the deletions allegedly occurred after his last confirmed online activity, suggesting someone else may have had access to his device. If true, this would completely challenge the original narrative. Shortly after this information began spreading, attention turned toward individuals who had recent contact with the actor. That's when the names of 4 previously unmentioned figures began quietly appearing in online discussions. To be clear, and this is important, none of these individuals have been formally charged with any wrongdoing. What we're examining here are emerging questions and why they've captured public attention. The first person of interest was reportedly among the last known visitors to Yu Menglong's residence in the days before September 11. Sources claim this individual had ongoing professional dealings with him and may have been involved in negotiations related to an upcoming project. Why does that matter? Because insiders say those negotiations had recently become tense. Multiple entertainment bloggers hinted that Yu Menglong had been reconsidering certain agreements shortly before his passing. If accurate, that raises the obvious question: did any professional conflict escalate behind the scenes? Then came the second name, someone described in online reports as having repeated phone contact with Yu Menglong in the 48 hours leading up to the incident. Phone metadata allegedly shows an unusual spike in communication frequency compared to their normal pattern. Was it urgent business? A personal matter? Or something else entirely? Investigators have not publicly confirmed the significance of these calls, but the pattern has fueled intense speculation among followers of the case. The third figure connected to the emerging evidence may be the most puzzling. According to circulating claims, this person was present in the same residential complex on the night of September 11. Security logs, again, based on unverified reports, allegedly show their entry and exit times overlapping with the critical window investigators have been studying. Coincidence? Possibly. But in a case already filled with unanswered questions, even coincidences are being scrutinized closely. And then there is the fourth name, the one that has fans the most unsettled. This individual reportedly had access to certain digital accounts linked to Yu Menglong's work schedule and communications. Online investigators claim there were brief, unexplained logins from a secondary device shortly after the actor's last confirmed activity. If this detail is ever officially verified, it could become one of the most important developments in the entire case. Because it would suggest that someone else may have been interacting with his digital footprint during the most critical window of time. Naturally, the internet erupted. Fan communities across multiple platforms began re-examining every public detail from the days surrounding September 11, 2025. Old interviews resurfaced. Archived posts were analyzed frame by frame. Even background details from his final public appearance started trending again. One particular moment has drawn renewed attention. In what would become one of his last widely shared video clips, Yu Menglong appeared calm but noticeably thoughtful. At the time, viewers interpreted it as simple fatigue from a busy schedule. But in hindsight, some fans now believe his expression hinted at private stress he never spoke about publicly. Of course, interpretations like this can be subjective. But they've added emotional fuel to an already sensitive situation. What has made the situation even more intense is the growing movement among supporters calling for full transparency. Across social media, hashtags demanding clarity about the September 11 timeline have continued to trend intermittently, especially whenever new rumors or evidence claims surface. Many fans aren't necessarily claiming wrongdoing. They simply want answers that feel complete. And right now, for many observers, the story still feels unfinished. Industry insiders have remained largely quiet, which has only deepened the mystery. In situations like this, silence can sometimes be routine. Investigations often limit public comment, but in the court of public opinion, silence often breeds more questions than reassurance. Behind the scenes, some analysts believe the renewed attention could eventually prompt a more detailed official review of the timeline. Whether that actually happens remains to be seen. What we do know is this. The case that once appeared straightforward is now surrounded by layers of unresolved curiosity. 4 new persons of interest. Unexplained digital activity. Timeline gaps that continue to spark debate. And a global fanbase that refuses to let the memory of September 11, 2025, quietly fade away. So where does the truth really lie? At this moment, there are still far more questions than confirmed answers. But history has shown us that cases like this sometimes take unexpected turns long after the public thinks the story is over. And if even part of this new evidence holds up under official scrutiny, the narrative surrounding Yu Menglong's final hours could shift in a very big way. For now, the world continues to watch, wait, and wonder. Because sometimes the most important details are the ones that surface last. If you've been following this case closely, I want to hear from you. Do you think these 4 new persons of interest could change everything? Or do you believe the truth about September 11, 2025, has already been fully revealed? The moment the clock struck midnight after September 11, 2025, something shifted. Not just in the entertainment industry, not just in the hearts of millions of fans, but in the quiet digital shadows surrounding the passing of Yu Menglong. Because while the world mourned, something else was happening behind the scenes, something subtle, something almost invisible, something that would later become the center of part 1 of this explosive unraveling. The device. It always comes back to the device. In the hours following Yu Menglong's passing, authorities reportedly secured his personal belongings, including his phone. At first glance, everything appeared routine. A tragic loss. A closed timeline. A heartbreaking headline. But weeks later, whispers began circulating in private fan communities about irregular digital footprints tied to September 11, 2025. And those whispers refused to die. Imagine this scene. It's late evening on September 11. The city outside is calm. Lights flicker in distant buildings. Traffic hums softly below. Inside his residence, everything appears undisturbed. No signs of chaos. No dramatic evidence of confrontation. Yet in the digital world, invisible to the human eye, activity is unfolding. Reports from independent tech observers claim that Yu Menglong's device showed outgoing communication attempts during a narrow window before he was found unresponsive. Messages that were never publicly discussed. Calls that seemed ordinary on the surface. But here's where the tension begins to rise. Some of those communications were allegedly deleted. Not days later. Not casually cleaned out. But within minutes of being sent. And that single detail is what ignited the storm. Because deletion timing matters. Digital analysts who reviewed metadata patterns described something unsettling: the removal of data did not match his typical usage behavior. Those who studied his public tech habits claim he rarely deleted conversations immediately. In fact, he was known among close colleagues to keep extensive message histories. So why would key interactions vanish so quickly? Or more chillingly, who deleted them? Now pause for a second and picture this unfolding like a thriller film. Investigators scrolling through timestamp logs. A silent room lit only by screens. The glow of numbers reflecting off tense faces. 1 minute everything appears stable. The next minute, gaps. Clean, precise gaps. And in cases involving unexplained timelines, gaps are louder than noise. Part 1 of this unfolding mystery focuses entirely on that digital void. Because before we can even talk about people, motives, or speculation, we have to understand what the silence in those missing minutes could mean. Sources claim that after Yu Menglong's last confirmed online activity, there were device interactions inconsistent with his normal patterns. Subtle differences. A change in typing rhythm. A shift in app navigation speed. Small technical indicators that suggest the possibility of another hand touching that screen. Of course, none of this has been officially confirmed by authorities. But the fact that independent analysts are even raising these questions has shaken public confidence in the original narrative. And here's where it becomes emotionally gripping. Fans remember that earlier that week, Yu Menglong had reportedly been discussing future projects. He had expressed excitement about upcoming collaborations. His calendar, according to close acquaintances, was not empty, it was full. Planning ahead. Scheduling meetings. Looking forward. That context makes the digital deletions feel even more unsettling. Because if someone is planning for tomorrow, what explains sudden silence today? Picture the tension building in real time. A notification sound that was never heard. A message sent that no one can now read. A final outgoing call that ended abruptly. We may never know what those deleted communications contained. They could have been ordinary. They could have been insignificant. But in a case surrounded by mystery, even ordinary details take on new weight. Then came another layer. Tech-savvy followers began comparing archived screenshots from earlier fan interactions with the device logs that surfaced later. And what they noticed added fuel to the fire: timestamps that didn't align perfectly with public statements. Again, we must be careful here. Discrepancies don't automatically equal wrongdoing. But they do raise questions. And questions are powerful. Imagine being part of the investigative team revisiting those final hours. You replay everything. You reconstruct movement patterns. You analyze battery usage. You look at Wi-Fi connectivity changes. At some point, someone asks the question no one wants to ask out loud. Was someone else there? Not necessarily physically in the room, but digitally present. Because in today's world, digital presence can be just as impactful as physical presence. Another dramatic twist in Part 1 involves reported secondary device access. According to circulating claims, there were brief login attempts tied to a backup authentication method connected to Yu Menglong's accounts. Short, precise, almost surgical. If those login attempts are ever officially verified, they could represent the moment this case shifts from tragic mystery to full investigative reopening. Think about the cinematic weight of that possibility. A quiet September night. A phone screen lighting up one last time. Data disappearing into digital darkness. And somewhere, someone knowing more than the public does. It feels like a scene from a suspense drama, except this is real life. What makes this even more emotionally charged is the global reaction. Fans across continents began archiving everything related to September 11th, 2025. Old live streams. Public posts. Interviews from days prior. They weren't looking for gossip. They were looking for consistency. For reassurance. For something that made sense. And the more they looked, the more Part 1, the digital evidence, felt like an unfinished chapter. Let's be clear. Digital anomalies alone do not prove malicious intent. Phones glitch. Metadata can be misinterpreted. Technical logs sometimes lack context. But when multiple small irregularities cluster around the exact window of a high-profile paasing, the human instinct to question becomes unavoidable. This is why Part 1 is so crucial. Before pointing fingers. Before naming individuals. Before drawing emotional conclusions. We must first confront the digital silence. Because silence speaks. What if those deleted messages contained a disagreement? What if they contained fear? What if they were entirely harmless and their removal was procedural? Each possibility carries a completely different narrative. And until clarity emerges, speculation will continue to grow. As the anniversary of September 11th approaches each year, online interest surges again. New threads resurface. Analysts revisit old data with fresh eyes. And every time, the same central question echoes louder than ever. What happened in those missing minutes? The passing of Yu Menglong on September 11th, 2025, was a moment of heartbreak. But Part 1, the digital puzzle, transformed heartbreak into lingering uncertainty. And uncertainty keeps stories alive. Some believe the digital irregularities will eventually be explained through routine investigation updates. Others believe the truth is far more complex than originally presented. Where do you stand? Do you believe the deleted communications are simply technical coincidences? Or do you think those missing minutes hold the key to everything? As we prepare to dive deeper into the next phases of this unfolding story, your voice matters more than ever. If this breakdown opened your eyes or gave you new perspective, make sure you show your support. Like this video so more people can join the conversation. Share it with other fans who have been following the September 11th timeline. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss Part 2, because what comes next shifts the focus from digital shadows to real-world connections. Now I want to hear directly from you. If you had access to those deleted messages, what do you think they would reveal? Do you believe someone else accessed the device after his final activity? Should authorities publicly address the digital inconsistencies to calm speculation? Drop your detailed thoughts in the comments below. Let's have an honest, respectful discussion. This story isn't just about mystery. It's about truth. And together, we're going to keep asking the questions that matter.